I see you're here with a bonus person.
A bonus, very, very sick little guy. He's been throwing up all day, so I'm just watching him. Mom will be in here in a couple minutes, but he may be by my side. So if I go on mute, it's just probably because you don't want to see what's happening. But we're gonna power through. We're gonna do this. It might be a little shorter than normal, but we're gonna power through today.
Oh, okay. I hope he feels better. That is no fun to be sick and no fun to watch them be sick. So I appreciate you still squeezing us in here. If you need to ditch out, we totally understand. Although I've been looking forward to chatting with you so much because Beard and Bowler does an amazing job focusing on not-for-profits, helping them tell their story, and they do the entire video production to increase your revenue, multiply impact, and inspire action, which is just what they have on the front website. Jason, tell us your story because it's so inspiring.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I started with a video production company in 2007. And I launched with what was then considered a luxury item just in time for that recession. So that was a fun few years to navigate. I ended up connecting with a good amount of brands. We worked for Jacob Javits Center, L'Oreal, Condé Nast, Diesel, a bunch of big brands. I had friends in marketing that would always hook me up with gigs. I just wasn't really a businessman. So it kind of just slowed down to the point where I had to get a day job with the news. And I ended up being a hard news photojournalist for about a half a decade. I had the 4 a.m. to noon shift. Every fire, every shooting, every stabbing, I was there. And I was covering in the New Jersey and New York City area. And it got to be a little bit overwhelming. And I think the low point for me was just covering an 11-year-old's funeral. It does something to you when you see like a casket that's that small. You don't think of them as made that small. And then the following week I was at a shooting where a mother just lost her son, and the reporter nudged me without even looking up. She's just tweeting about the story. She's like, "Go get the mom." I'm like, "Wait, what do you mean?" She's like, "Go interview the mom. We need sound." They called it sound interview for this package, or else this kid just becomes another statistics, right? In this area, right? So as I'm interviewing this weeping mom who just lost her kid the night before, the morning of, I'm still kind of justifying it to myself, like maybe somebody will see this, maybe they'll learn, maybe I won't be back here again. And what would happen very next month, next week, next day, sometimes I'd be back the same area, cards on the stoop, candles on the stoop. If you're in the hood, it's t-shirts that are stapled to telephone poles and everybody signs them. And it got to be overwhelming to me. And I realized I might've been doing probably more harm than good in the types of stories that I was telling. So I started meeting with a friend of mine. I called him my Yoda. He always just had the best advice. And we had these intense sessions where we'd go over things, and like he turned to me, he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "It's video. I still think it has the biggest impact, the biggest potential for impact with the least amount of effort," right? Because of social media nowadays and everything that's surrounding us digitally. But you're already doing video. You're working for the news. You've got these big clients that you're still freelancing for. Like what kind of video? And I thought about a guy by the name of Willie. His name was Deacon Willie Davis. And he was at the intersection of two of the worst crime streets in Paterson, New Jersey, and across from 2 burned down buildings. Willie had a full-time job. He was 70 years old, and he took 2 vacant plots of land and started cultivating them. He couldn't get anything to grow there, so he had to bring in his own dirt. And eventually he had this flourishing garden, community garden, and he'd hold a farmer's market every other week in the summer. And if you couldn't afford to donate, he'd just say, "Take a bag of fruit, take a bag of vegetables," and brought kids in, showed them how to farm, how to work the dirt with he was from South Carolina, so he grew up on a farm. He passed it on to them. And I explained this to my Yoda. I said, this is the type of story I would tell. He's a light in a very dark area. And what started happening around them, like all of the burned down buildings across the street got rebuilt, and now it's a community store. There's a community fridge across the street. Everybody knew not to touch Willie's garden. And I said to my Yoda, I said, if I could tell those stories all day, every day, that would be a good life for me, like regardless of pay. And he said, you know what? I'm sold. I'm in. If you could figure out how to do that and make a living at it, count me in. So we reverse engineered it. And it was very important because at that point in time, we had found our why. Right. What was it that we wanted to do and why we wanted to do it? And it was to tell stories that are going to inspire others to positive action. Like the soccer mom in the next town over could see that, be inspired, and do something similar, right? So how do we tell those types of stories all day, every day? And we realized that even in thinking about starting a nonprofit ourselves or a Boys and Girls Club, for every issue that we could think of, there was already 100 nonprofits at least already doing like a better job than we ever could if we dedicated our whole lives to it, right? Right. So we said, why don't we just do what we're good at? And he was a storyteller and I was an artist with video, and we kind of combined forces, and he'd deal with the words and the interviews and I'd deal with the visuals, and found a comfortable niche in nonprofits that were doing events that were making a decent amount. We knew that if they had at least were raising 100K in a night, that they have enough people in the room that could potentially dig a little bit deeper should they be touched by an emotional, impactful video. And you want to borrow? He's doing all right.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to
oh,
you got to go? All right. You're with me, buddy.
See if you're okay.
I'm okay. We're okay. Say hi to my wife. That's hi. Ashley.
She's beautiful.
Thanks. See you later.
So, Jason, most people don't have one and they're thinking, I need one. You want to tell them why?
Let me tell you why you need one that follows a very specific formula. And I can talk about story structure, and I can talk about some of the biggest mistakes. But to answer your question, why you need one because every now and then, if you've done events before, if you've been to events, you'll have seen a speaker who did a really good job, or maybe an auctioneer even that pulls somebody in, and they're doing it by story. And it's like once every decade, you'll get that really good speaker, and you get everybody in the room feeling the same thing and at the same time. And why that's so critical is because in order to give people incentive to give, you have to make a connection right here, not make a connection right here. It's not a dollars and cents thing. It's not this makes sense. They help X amount of people below the poverty line. It's like, show me a story of impact. Let me see myself in that person that you've impacted, and yourself as the guide. And if you're able to do that, you're able to make a connection and build a bond with somebody that's very hard to break. And when you do that, you connect with people emotionally, and that's when they're able to give more. So we nickname, or our videos have been nicknamed, the wallet openers specifically because of that. But yeah, I mean, we can go over some story structure too. Go over some story structure.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay, let's see if he holds it together enough. Sorry, everybody, he's a little sick today. So if you're just joining us, he'll be with me until he loses his mind and starts crying. But then maybe we'll cut to a video. Did you get any videos, by the way? Did my team send you anything, Lori?
I don't have that teed up yet. But as soon as it comes in, I'll certainly share it.
Okay, we'll do that then. But so for story structure, here's a structure that every major Hollywood movie and best-selling book follows. And if you're taking notes, write this down. There are basically 7 steps to every good story. And here's the structure. A character has a problem and then meets a guide who gives them a plan and calls them to action. And that action results in either a comedy, a happy ending, or a tragedy, a sad ending. And if you follow those steps, you cannot break them. If you follow those steps, you will have a good video that pulls people in and keeps them there. So if you have kids, raise your hand if you have kids in the room. Just give me a little hand emoji, or a little I don't know, what would you say? Fire emoji, crying emoji. Give me some sort of emoji if you have kids, or maybe just a number. Give me the ages. The reason I'm asking this is because Disney Pixar is the king of this. And when we had our first son, it was January 2020. We were in the middle of COVID, and we couldn't go many places. And about a year or two later, when he could start watching TV, we had a lot of Disney movies on, and they followed this formula to a T, like exactly. And you'll see it in every movie. I'll use Finding Nemo as an example. Why can't Marlin, who's the main character, by the way, just swim across the ocean and find Nemo? He gets attacked by 3 sharks. He gets attacked. He gets stuck in a field full of jellyfish. He gets swallowed by a whale. He gets swallowed by a pelican. Why? In every single scene, they introduce a problem to you. So this is step 1, introducing a problem and doing it early. And if you don't introduce a problem, you will lose your audience very quickly. So introduce a problem, introduce it early, and then hold the tension to the very end. You have the overarching problem of, yes, I need to find Nemo. But in between, all of those little problems that I mentioned keep cropping up. They do that to hold your attention, specifically because we're hit in this day and age, we're hit with 3,000 pieces of marketing per day. And that's in like an urban, suburban area. If you live in New York, it could be as many as 7,000 to 10,000 a day. The only thing that's going to cut through the noise is authenticity and storytelling, getting people to self-select. So your character has a problem and meets the guide, who gives them a plan, calls them to action, either a comedy or a tragedy, happy or sad ending. In this, drop in the chat if you know who the hero of your story should be. I'll just leave that there for a minute. Drop in the chat if you know who the hero of your story should be. If you're doing storytelling at an event, who should the hero be? Just a quick quiz.
Okay, we got Kate with donor, we got Libby with donor, we got Yuli with the givers, we got another one with a donor, question mark.
So let's flip this on its head. Who should be the guide? Every story, receiver's receiver. That's a good one. Every story has a hero and it has a guide. And if you notice in Finding Nemo, it was Dory for a good amount of the time. And then it flipped, and then it was back to Marlin. But every story has a hero and a guide. So who do you think the guide should be in your story?
So a couple people have written the org, great question, hero, receiver, recipients of the program, the development director, the development/me, says Yuli Brown.
Good.
Those are the comments.
Those are good. We see this all of the time, and it's probably one of the biggest mistakes that people make in storytelling, especially when we see it in nonprofits. It's positioning yourself as the hero. And if you're a Donald Miller fan, Donald Miller's a great author. Story Brands, his book, he breaks it down very simply. If you position yourself as the hero, even though you're doing great things, you're saving the world nonprofit, if you position yourself as the hero, you've lost in the video. In your story, you're the guide, you're the Yoda, you're the Obi-Wan, you're the person that's taking them from point A to point B. Who is the them? Who is the hero? The hero is the people that you serve. Mm-hmm. They are the ones that we usually put in that position. And if it's, vulnerable or children, maybe it's a guardian, right? Because I know that question comes up a lot, but it's the people that you serve are the hero and you're their guide. So if you can tell a story about a hero, someone that you serve, bringing them from point A to point B with yourself as the guide, that's when you have a story that's going to win. Introduce a problem, the problem that they were facing before they met your organization, stay in that tension until the very end, and then release the tension when you've come to the end, like the last 5% of the video. You'll see this in Disney too. Like the villain doesn't disappear, the problem doesn't disappear until the last, it's 8 minutes to 1 minute and 45 seconds was the lowest I've seen. Like I counted these when we were watching Disney movies, but 1 minute and 45 seconds was Toy Story. I think the longest one I've seen was Monsters Inc. at like 8 minutes plus. But as soon as there's resolution, people check out. Roll
Yes.
credits. We're leaving. Maybe they can get you to stay till the end if there's another sneak preview. But guess what that sneak preview does? It usually introduces another problem. Marvel's also very good at this, right?
Right.
So like roll credits. As soon as the good guy wins, the problem disappears. Roll credits because we check out.
Right. So, Jason, I have 2 links here. One for Oliver Scholars, 2024 Gala Sizzle and Arts Connection, linking learning and the arts. Which one should we fire up first?
Let's play Arts Connection because the next one will lead into what we call Sizzle or Hush Video. But look for the hero, look for the guide in this organization. Arts is something that's not an easy story to tell if you're not sure what you're doing. But this was actually our crew's favorite. Like we have a bunch of them, but this was a crew favorite. So let's play this one.
Okay, hold on a second. Hold on. Let me try and do it through here. Otherwise, the audio isn't going to work, and it's not taking that. Okay, I'm going to hit mute so you guys don't get feedback from me.
If it wasn't for Arts Connection sort of giving me access to the arts and giving me access to writing and reflecting and wanting to still be here, I don't know that I would be. I hated the arts, man. I hated it. You know, you're a 10-year-old kid, your dad is dragging you to museum weekend after weekend, and all you want to do is watch TV, play in the park, see your friends. The visual arts was not for me. I didn't like those experiences of going to the museum and always wanted to be somewhere else. You know, I think this is the story of parents and children, right? In one way or another, our parents kind of imprint themselves on us, and that can either be in the form of kids who really take after their parents or resist and push back really hard against that. So, for example, my father loved soccer. I was a basketball player. He liked painting. I thought painting was stupid. He was an abstract expressionist, and I said, well, what does that mean, and why does it matter? I pushed back at probably every turn I could.
It is unquestionable that the impact of thinking and art together are essential to a child's development. And the early parts of this are, I think, even more crucial, that we have children and understand in children the importance of just their brain thinking and how art engages that. I look around in life and I think, what is the cornerstone? It is art. It is the cornerstone that gives us the ability to think. It gives us the ability to create, not just to create a thing, but to create us. Art is a cornerstone. It's not just entertainment.
The biggest impact that I think Arts Connection has for others, and this is the impact that they had for me, was showing them, or showing me, the opportunities that were out there to be involved in this art world. This world that I didn't even know existed or didn't even know was accessible. These are the people who taught me how to think, taught me how to be critical, taught me how to break apart ideas, more so than anyone else. This is what art teaches you.
The impact that Arts Connection programs have on the schools is almost unquantifiable because the programs are so varied, from whether it's a dance program or it's a visual art program or it's a theater program. But clearly when you go into the schools and you see these children and you then hear from them is when you know that Arts Connection has actually worked. We've had students that have come back and you see them as adults, young adults, and hear them tell you their story, that it was Arts Connection and those classes that opened them to different thinking.
Yeah, I believe in the work that Arts Connection does because I'm proof of it. I wouldn't be here the way that I am without everything that they did.
Art is our soul. And then how we express it is the being that we become. The tragedy of Arts Connection is that it can't give it to every child. It isn't big enough. And we need to touch so many, many more.
Investing in Arts Connection, or just investing in the arts at all, it's worthwhile because art is what changes who we are. It's the impetus for any sort of change in the world around us. It's how we turn the world inside of our heads into hopefully at least the world outside of it. What could be more worthwhile?
That's lovely.
Some of these stories still get me.
Right?
Just want you to notice a couple things about that. Number one, what we started with. And what we started with is something that we called a cold open. And you notice there's no music, there's no nothing. There's just his voice and a long dramatic pause. And I think people are uncomfortable with adding pauses in there, but sometimes they're your most powerful asset. So that's cold open, hooks people in, introduces a problem, and then keeps them there to the very end. And then the next thing to notice is the CTA, call to action, very clear, very simple, not a bunch of clutter, donate, do this, do that, follow here. One CTA, one call to action, and then the logo. But if you have the Hush video, maybe we can get into that one, and we'll break that one down.
I do. I have is that the one on, is that the Oliver Scholars?
Yeah, and while you're queuing that up, I'll talk a little bit about a Hush video. And basically what we use Hush videos for is, after dinner where the crowd's rowdy, you need something to bring them back. But also to promote next year's event, we'll do something called the same day edit. So my crew will go to the event, they'll shoot the event, and then edit the event on site. We have an on-site editor, and debut it the day up. And nothing quiets down the crowd quicker than a baby who might be throwing up. So play that now, and I'll see if he's okay.
That sounds good. And I have a question for you either before or after. Can you talk to us about how many stories, how many people to include in it? I know, you kind of want us to narrow that down to one really, really good story. And I don't think that gets across enough, or at least it's finally sinking in for me. Should I hit Oliver Scholars here and hit go? Okay, I'm going to hit mute on my end too.
Oliver Scholars, we are so overjoyed to continue the partnership and the collaboration.
Juan and I are extremely excited to be here with you all on the 40th anniversary of this incredible organization. We're not only doing this for ourselves, but we're doing this for that next generation as we invest and expand and empower and hopefully leave this world a little bit better than what we found it.
The spirit of Oliver Scholars is to outdream, outdo, outshine. This is how we build. This is how we boost. And Oliver Scholars, we are so overjoyed to continue the partnership and the collaboration with you. It is so important to boost and to elevate and to remember that no one succeeds alone.
So as I was saying, nothing quiets down the crowd quicker than seeing themselves on camera in slow motion set to the beat of music from earlier that day. So we call these a hush video, or the event producers have nicknamed it the hush video, and they'll ask for them because they need certain points where they bring the crowd back. But the second way that you can use this for is for your second gift ask or your email that follows up. Videos already, when it goes in email, like in the subject line with video in brackets, 4,000 times more likely to be opened and engaged with. So imagine if you're telling people they may see themselves, your video or your next day email, your 2 day later email, depending how much drinking was at the event, that goes out, engagement goes through the roof with something like this. And then not to mention promoting the event the following year. So that is a sizzle video. That's a hush video. If you're going to go with one though, and you can only do one, we use those at larger events, as you can see from that one. If you're only going to do one, I highly recommend mission moment and the story of how you help someone get from point A to point B. And the question you have is, how many people do you usually put in a video? And I see this mistake a lot. People gather testimonials and they're like, oh, this is great. I got 7, I got 8. And they gather them like they're collecting cards, right? And then
Yes.
right? Like, this is good. They'll shove them all into one video.
Yes.
The problem with that is testimonials are great. Even iPhone testimonials, like living alone on the page. Like, you want something authentic, right? So maybe keep those separate. If you use those as a mission moment video, the problem is we don't have enough time to invest in any one person or any one story. So by the time that we're hearing John's story and he's getting into it, now we're on to Jill, and then we're on to Sam, and then we're on to somebody else. And now, okay, great organization, but why do I care? Why am I invested? I didn't have a chance to connect with John. I didn't have a chance to dive into Sam's story. I didn't hear what really moved them or what really changed. Yeah, they said some great things, but you basically have a promo video. So we always recommend, whenever possible, one hero, one person that you've helped, and then one guide in the story, someone which is you. And it's not necessarily another question we get, like, who should it be from the organization? Interesting fact, the higher up the rung on the organization, up to CEO, the less of a person they become in people's eyes and the more of the entity they become. So we've had success even with just people who were the counselor that worked one-on-one with them. And we've seen success that way, as opposed to, like, always sticking the CEO in the video. And you can do that, and that might be good for a history video, but maybe think about this for your organization. You may want somebody who's worked one-on-one directly with them, could even be a volunteer. These are things we usually suss out on a pre-production call, depending on who your target audience is. Because we had one that was playing today, actually a lunch audience. That's different than a dinner audience where everybody's there at night in a gala, right? It's a whole different crowd. Who's going to be there? The type of person that's going to be there. What target demographic are we trying to hit? These are all questions that we ask on a pre-production call to make sure that we have somebody that's going to speak to them, somebody that they can self-select with. So before we hit record, before we talk about, like, those are the questions that we ask, and then we make recommendations on who you should find to interview from your organization.
Awesome. I'm asking all the questions. If anybody has any questions they want to ask, please feel free. I have a list here of questions that people ask us all the time, and I'm always like, I don't know, talk to the pros. And now that I have the expert here on the line, I have quite a few. The question that comes up a lot is, can we reuse this video after we've done it? Like, we've done it once. Now, has everybody seen it? Like my, beautiful black dress or whatever.
Yeah.
What's the answer to that?
So if you're a small organization, we've seen small organizations use them as long as 2 years. If you're in corporate, you may it might last 2 months, right? Mm-hmm. But in small organizations, we've seen some longevity. What we use them for primarily is the event. And then we'll have other packages that have like a social media component where you can almost do a re-release online, and you're using these social media snackable pieces to kind of tease the event. Like, guess what's coming on June 16th? Like, we're releasing this piece. And you can do that with photos and videos and just kind of build up momentum to a digital release. And we always encourage people to get an engagement team together. And that could be employees, that could be friends and fans. Maybe you have people hanging around who can't donate or won't donate a lot, but they will sure as heck comment on the video if you call them or call them one-on-one and say, I need you to do this for me, Tim, 2:00 on Tuesday, we're dropping this clip, please comment on it. They'll go out there, share it, and then like they'll become your brand ambassador. We know
Right.
this with our own launch, like people will share it, and then they'll share everything else you have because they almost feel like it's their duty, their responsibility as a brand ambassador. So that's what you do secondarily in a digital campaign. It can live on a website for a blog post for SEO. It can live on your homepage. We always recommend that people have it on their homepage, not necessarily in autoplay, but somewhere living there to just summarize who we're all about. We've also had organizations use it in very surprising ways that we weren't expecting. One was for employee orientation every month. For volunteers, you filled out the paperwork, you know the what, the numbers, here's the why, who we serve and why, and the heart of it, right? And most recently last year, we had somebody apply for grants and get $500K from the state, 250 from federal, another 200. They had $1 million in grants, and they attributed it largely to our storytelling because they attached it to the end of every single grant application. Again, here's the money, here's the stuff that you want. Now here's the heart and soul of our organization and who we serve and why you should care about it. Like just almost as the ribbon. So like that's a huge case study. Sure, quadruple your event giving year over year with introducing an emotively driven video, but then take that and make another $1 million off of it in grants. Like those are huge success stories that we've seen. Most importantly, though, and this is the last one I'll leave you with, is taking it to the one-on-one meetings or setting up one-on-one meetings specifically for screening, or that person that you may have been wanting to get involved, but really didn't have the ammo or the tools. This potentially, we say the event is just the excuse to cost justify what could potentially be your best fundraising asset. So we've had people take this to small family foundations and just get the guy like really emotional, 2 million over 2 years. We've also had it in some unconventional ways, like where there's nonprofits that really think strategically. And they brought it to a group of a celebrity chef in New Jersey, where the relationship was closed because he had a bad experience with one of their culinary students. They came out of the rehab program, went to culinary school at the nonprofit, got trained. They had a bad experience with them, right? The relationship was closed. CEO brought this to the chef, showed him the video. He broke down in tears and said, I didn't realize that you were having such an impact here. What can I do to help? What can we do to help? And it's more about just a check at that point. He gets all his celebrity chef friends from like the New Jersey area, puts them together in his restaurant overlooking New York City, 10,000 square feet overlooking the Hudson. And he has a fundraising event. A brand new fundraising event was born out of this that raised $200,000 its first year. That was 2019. And the event is still happening yearly to this date. And it was all because that the CEO was able to use this tool and make an emotional connection, create a bond with somebody who we already had a relationship with, but like didn't understand the impact that they were having until it was laid out in a certain way for.
I love that. You made a comment talking about the videos, lunch versus a dinner gala. Question comes in and it says, how should a lunch gathering video be different than a dinner gala? Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, so dinner, you got to think everybody is in the mode of drinking mode, relaxing, having fun. Lunch, everybody's stitched up. They got to go back to work. There may not be that much laid backness, right? So what we did here was we talked to them first of all, and we asked them about the audience, and they're like, this is not our gala audience. This is a lunch audience. This is a whole different demographic of business people and actors and everybody that's in this industry. Like we can't do what we would normally do. So we flipped it on its head and we interviewed somebody who actually wasn't a recipient of the program's benefits. They were actually just somebody who was in the industry and could identify and clearly articulate the problem of that most people in that organization face. And then we still introduced the organization as the guide that takes people like that and gives them access to what they need access to, right? So I'm being very vague and generic here, but it's usually on a case-by-case basis, and we'll just ask a bunch of questions to really narrow it down. The main thing is, if you shoot at a lot of targets, you're going to hit none. So you want to keep it very targeted to a specific demographic. And we've even asked people like, okay, can I use this for corporate sponsorship? Like, you could, but that's a different demographic. You know, you want to do something intentionally for that demographic. And it may seem like a big investment just for that, but if that is going to bring you 6 to 7 figures year over year on a recurring basis, maybe it's something that you seriously consider if you have the relationships for that. So
that makes sense. Another question comes in. What's the sweet spot for the length of the video? Is there a formula for that?
So when we go in, we don't actually charge by the minute, specifically because we like to let the story tell itself. And we'll do a screening every day, almost every day. If we're not on set, we'll have screening time with the crew, and everybody will present what they've worked on or what they've edited, right? And we'll say, you know what? How long was that? That didn't feel long at all. Wow, that was 4.5 minutes. That didn't feel like that at all. And oftentimes we'll try to hide that play bar from the client too, so they could have that same feeling, because sometimes people get scared if it's over 3 minutes, right? But sometimes that may be what you need to tell the story. Sometimes that's far too long, like if the story's not there, and you're just kind of filling in gaps, right? So we let it tell itself. And the hardest part for us as storytellers is to cut from the gold to the diamonds, right? Like I have this thing that I'd always say as I'm in this. We started with an 11-minute cut. Now it's down to 6. Now it's 5. We got to shave another 90 seconds off of this. How are we going to do this? And I tell myself, if it does not move the story along, it has to go. This is it's a profound soundbite, but it doesn't move the story along. It has to go. So like, that's probably one of the toughest jobs as an editor, just figuring out what has to go. That's a story editor's job, which is sometimes just a whole separate discipline from a video editor. But it's one of the toughest things to figure out what can go and what can stay. So for social media, we have social media packages where there's anywhere from like 10 seconds to 45 seconds, depending on if they're using it for ads or for organic. And then for the long form video, that's usually around 3-ish minutes. But we'll put like up to 4, because, you know, we don't charge. It's harder to get it shorter than it is to keep it longer in most cases. For sure.
A question had come in the past talking about sponsorships. I love to sell anything that is not nailed down, whether it be the front row parking, the last seat in the house, because my husband doesn't like to sit up front, sponsor the bar card, the raffle line, whatever it is. Can you talk about people using sponsorships to pay for videos?
Yes. I mean, look, we work with nonprofits, so we know all about the funding struggle, and especially for anything administrative or marketing, like that's frowned upon in this industry, right? Like spend money on marketing dollars, like a regular business here or something. Like, but you're also competing with the same audience that Nike and Coke have, right? Like you're competing with that same audience in most cases, right? So you still have to do some marketing. So what we've done is we've created a whole sponsorship document, and it's blank. And we usually ask them for like a 6-word mission statement that we can fill in. And we tell them, bring this to people. And you're going to know, we're going to describe the people, but you're going to know them, who they are after we describe them. Bring this to somebody who's been wanting to do a special project, is invested in the organization, but doesn't just want to write a check, or almost maybe even have some donor fatigue going on, right? And we'll say, don't come from it from, please, sir, give us some videos. Like, don't come out hat in hand. You need to come from an empowering position. We are producing a video, a film about the impact that we've had. This person as a character, this person as the guide. It's going to be about 3-4 minutes. We're debuting it. We're premiering it at our gala. We are looking for 3 executive producers here to help us get this off the ground. And I usually tell people, if you go to that right alpha, male or female, and you bring this to them and say, yeah, you're on the list, and then I have these 2 other people. No. Don't call them. I'll do the whole thing. You might get lucky. But we've also are strategic right from just the discovery call. So we'll usually request a board member, a key influential board member on the call from call 1, if we can, or call 2. And what we'll do is we'll go through our discovery process and ask them a lot of questions that they hadn't thought about, that a typical GWC or guy with camera won't think to ask them, to position their story strategically. And then from one of those calls, we've actually had a board member sponsor a quarter of the video. And then they screened it for the board member, and they got another person to sponsor another quarter of it. So halfway before it's even debuted, they got half of it sponsored. And then they made 45K over what they did last year. So it was just a great success story, spending half of it of what you were quoted on video, and then just like crushing what you did last year with less people, mind you. But like, that's how we tell people to think about this and come from an empowered position. I'll give you one more example on that. Is we were working with a nonprofit in the inner city, and a regional branch of Wells Fargo approached them and said, we want to, we have a chunk of money and we want to do something different. We don't want to just buy a walk-in refrigerator. We don't want to just buy a check. We want to do something different. Executive director had a background as an exec at ABC, and he knew exactly what to do with it in telling the story, right? So he came to us, and we did the video. They broke records at their gala. They did a bunch of other stuff with it and making special connections and partnerships. But what happened after that was funny. Wells Fargo went through all of the drama that they had gone through with, I guess, the fake accounts or whatever.
Right.
National Wells Fargo actually flew out to them and sat down in a meeting and said, thank you for letting us be associated with you at this time, because they needed all the PR that they could get.
Right.
Like, you come at it with that angle, with somebody thanking you for letting them be associated with you and becoming a brand ambassador. Because you know what the best the big corporate brands could do? We're trying to change this, but the best they could do is like, come film us volunteering in the soup kitchen and build.
Right. Looks so staged.
That's their CSR initiatives, right? So
Right.
if they could sponsor something that's genuine, it could potentially be their best piece of marketing all year too, best performing piece. Then why not? And
Right.
Yeah, give them credit right in a sponsored by brand X, anyone who you want to be associated with, right? So we often tell them, give them credit. We put it right in the video, brought to you by
Love
brand
that.
X. After your CTA, your logo, proudly funded in part by their logo. So that's something that they get to keep. You want them to become a brand ambassador, because chances are their audience is bigger than yours and they have more spending power on the ad spend. So yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Libby has a question. She says, our budget is very small organization. We know, we bump into that. Do you have any tips on a video team to work with, and what budget should they really look for? Obviously, sponsorships and our whole conversation about that can help her accelerate that funding.
Yeah. So I would say we have a lot of resources, because we obviously run into this a lot of times too. So Sid just dropped in the B&B Gala playbook. There's also another page. If you go to our secret sauce on our website right there, here, if you want to drop this link in there, scroll down. This is like a breakdown of the 7 elements of story. But if you scroll down to the bottom, that button there that says send it, that is all of the our secrets, and all of it even has sample interview questions that we ask on set. And it basically has a guide and a worksheet where it breaks down who's the hero, who's the guide, what the problem was, what was the plan of action. So you can break down your story on paper before you even go to film it. And if budget's really tight, iPhone and some wireless mics will work. They have mics that plug right into iPhones. I have another talk on that too. I think it's in our blogs if you want that, how to do video yourself. But if you only have access to your local videographer or GWC guy with camera, like give them this worksheet, work on it with them. And in business, it's the same as nonprofit. It's either going to take sweat equity or it's going to take dollars, right? So if you don't have the dollars, you're just going to be putting in the time to produce it yourself. And your first one may not be great, but you'll get better at it and you can keep doing it. And the important part is to just keep creating content, right? So this will give you a guide on how to build your story out. And then visuals are almost secondary. I have stuff we shot 6 years ago that I don't even want to look at anymore, right? But like the story was so good, I keep sharing it, you know? Like we're head and shoulders above quality rise and 4K this and that, but like if the story's there, sometimes that's all that really matters. And then you just have to be a good editor. So you can work with a local videographer, understanding that you will have to do the work on the story because most don't understand all of the elements of story. And I don't say that to be mean. I say that because I didn't either until I brought my business partner in, our story architect, and we started collabing together on this. And I do visuals, he do story, and we just kind of rubbed off on each other. But yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a sideways conversation. We were talking about lunch versus dinner. Will asks, I would guess, in all caps, that the actual doers are more likely to be at dinner whilst the higher up deciders take the fancy dinners. I have an opinion on that. Do you have an opinion on that, or are the
Go ahead on that.
It could go both ways. The people that are hanging out at lunch are the ones that are so far up and have the deepest pockets that they don't need to work. So they will be at the luncheons. Sometimes the women tend to be more at the luncheons, and they're the ones that are more generous and philanthropic in the families. So I would not pigeonhole either of those into a lunch or a dinner. I would try out different events. I would try a golf event. You never know who shows up at those. There's a huge variety there. So that's my 2 cents.
That's good.
And Will gave me a face with some stars on it, so I appreciate.
You did good then. Yeah, it's I'm thinking about that too, and just who goes there, and like if maybe a executive is gallant out. Like if you think about when you get to a certain level, I'm not there, but like if you get to a certain level, everybody's probably asking you to be their honoree. Everybody's probably asking you, like, you made it to a list somewhere, so you're getting asked left and right. You're probably gallant out, you know, like maybe you just want to stop by, like at work. Don't even need to like get a sitter or get the family. Like you could just stop by for lunch. So, you know, it could be, but typically the nonprofit will know who's coming and they'll know their audience. So that's what we always, it's a very important question to know who your personas are, the people that are coming, however you can get that data.
Yeah, we've actually had a conversation in one of our other webinars with a not-for-profit event planner, and she was talking about how some of the more affluent people in their area, they won't even come to the event anymore because they don't want to be seen raising a paddle, and then everybody sees, oh my God, that guy, you know, or that gal or that family, raising a paddle for 10G. We need to go after them. Wow. And you know, they like to do it anonymously because they don't want to have that spotlight on them. So it's definitely a balancing act.
Yeah, we've had people sponsor anonymously too. So yeah, and then you go back and forth. No, put the X family. No, put nobody. No, put okay. No, don't put anybody. So they'll go back and forth on it too. So yeah,
awesome. So we're coming close to the top of the hour. I want to give everybody any one last chance if they have any questions. We will be sending out an email, Jason, and we'll have all these links in it. And then I think I'm going to give you the registration list, and you can send out a hello as well. That way, if anybody has any follow-ups, they can link into you and your team directly. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine with us. We've got a weekly newsletter that we do, professionally written. We've got 5 days a week of content on LinkedIn. We've got a YouTube channel. So we have a ton of resources, and all I do is just what I did now. Just it's putting babies to sleep because I'm boring, I guess. Yeah, so a lot of knowledge goes out. We put a lot of effort into that. So we could send that out as well.
I will say you're a great follow on LinkedIn and Facebook, actually.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So I usually wish people bids that soar. I hope you crush your fundraising goals. Jason, I'll give you the last word.
I think you said it better than I could have. So I'll see you on LinkedIn. I hope to see you all on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. I hope Ezra feels better, and I hope you guys have nothing but health coming your way.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.